All right, folks, it is 5:15. Welcome to those watching online and to our board. Thank you all for joining us this evening. We are going to be having our conversation around a new town hall, location of et cetera. And I guess I'm turning it over to you, Mr. Williams.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The board, I guess, December, January, put this project on a 6-month pause. Just wanted to bring it back with some of the outcome of the alternate sites that have been submitted over the last 6 months. I know the manager is going to jump in, and I'll stop talking once he looks at me. But wanted to kind of give a rundown of some of the sites that were thrown out, and also put a note there about the Downtown Plan Steering Committee. They had made a motion in their February meeting that Town Hall should be located within 2 blocks of the intersection out here at 115 and Gilead.
So I'll just hop in here to kind of give you an update on the various sites. And as Bobby said, we had promised to come back to you in June to discuss this further. Obviously, you know the details. You'll see some slides in a little bit. There's only 5 or 6 slides. The current proposed site, which is where we were looking at before we called a halt, expand the current town hall site, which we're on. You'll see some pictures on that. As you know, we have purchased the land. We own the land behind what I'd say the white building where Foster's used to be, so we have that land in place now. The American Legion site, we looked at the American Legion site. I've talked to Mark Gibbons. The issue there is they have to have another location. So to even be able to purchase that, you got to agree on a price, got to have another location. And I don't know ultimately if their board would sell, or if you had another site maybe. So we didn't go any further than that because we didn't have another site. Parcel sold to North State, which is right behind DPK. Obviously, I did reach out to them early on to see if that would be for sale when we're going through this process. They're moving with their project. Now, something could change a couple months from now, but my understanding is they're going to break ground here in the next few months. As far as the corner across the street here, I assume this is Slice House in that corner, southeast corner of 115. We have made a run at that before. Who knows, we may make a run at it again at some point in time. DPK space, use the existing DPK space. You all are familiar that there's a lease on that property that has multiple 3 5-year extensions. I think it takes that out to like 2040 or so, maybe 2045. I've got to look back at it. And then from there, we really didn't, these other sites, we took a glimpse at them, but we didn't, go into a lot of details on the various sites. Some are not for sale. Some other folks are may potentially buy, like the theater site, et cetera. So to be honest with you, once we got past the DPK space, I didn't spend a lot of time on it and effort because, I could go look at every site in town, and I don't want to waste a lot of your time and my time. Where I saw the most, what I'd say, consensus, were the first 3 dots. That's the current proposed site, current town hall, and American Legion, and probably the most consensus was on the expand the current town hall. So that's sort of my update on these various sites, and then we have some more information to share, and then ask any questions you like.
And so we brought the slides, and you guys have seen these before, but going back to the first 3 dots, the original proposed site over next to Town Center with a 36,000 square foot building. The first 2 floors would be built out with town office space and a new town council chambers. The cost estimate in December was about $14.5 million. And thankfully, at least going through this process, spent about $250,000 to get through advanced planning and schematic design. So we have a general idea of what our needs are, whether it's here, whether it's somewhere else. We kind of know what it looks and feels like, just a matter of how it evolves on whatever piece of land is ultimately decided upon. So this was option C of the 3 options the previous board was shown. This was chosen as the most desirable. The existing town hall, the architect looked at this a number of years ago and was able to provide us with sort of a, hey, here's a quick look at how this might look and feel based on what we heard from the public as, hey, we'd like to see you expand the current town hall. So the existing town hall, where we are today, 8,000 square foot, about half of that's the room we're sitting in here right now. At the time, housed all administrative functions of the town. And you can see sort of how this town hall space would flow into the new programming that would go into a new town hall, and estimated roughly 40,000 square feet between keeping this building, which would become your new community room that can be rented by the community, used for community programming, give us an additional indoor park and rec programming space. And then you'd have a connector and then a 3-story facade that would have a town council chamber, town offices, et cetera. And then the third bullet was the American Legion site, a little over an acre. About a third of it is shared with the parking for Veterans Park. It does maintain the consistency of the civic core concept, which you've seen and have shared previously related to going over to Town Center to do that, as was in our previous downtown master plan. And roughly at its tightest point there at the southern end, it's about the same width across as the proposed site at Town Center, just to kind of give you some bearings. And then this site, we would have to try to figure out a parking solution that would be compatible with Veterans Park and the number of downtown events that we've been bringing. And then we also just wanted to give you kind of a quick look. A number of new positions are proposed in the current FY23 budget proposal. And to give you just kind of a quick look at the utilization of space in Town Hall as well as over in Town Center. Town Hall, our offices and cubes are completely full. And then our back conference room is used every Wednesday by the Veterans Affairs officer. And our boardroom will be used every other Tuesday, or at least 2 Tuesdays a month, by a staff member from Representative Alma Adams' office. And we're very glad to have both of them here, but it definitely presses us for space sometimes. You find folks on calls or in meetings out in our kitchen and break area. At Town Center, you can see all the red names, red position titles, show you everywhere that there is a person occupying a space, or that there will be a person occupying a space once we get into FY23. You've got basically a few cubes left in the planning side, and then we've looked at the potential of adding maybe as many as 4 additional cubes on the Park and Rec and Engineering side. And of course, with the new building, the Park and Rec staff, which occupy these 3 offices and these 4 cubes, as well as the IT staff that are in these 2 offices and these 2 cubes, would come out and move into the new building. But it's sort of just a snapshot of where we are, and we're running out of space.
So what I'll just follow up on that. So as you noticed when Bobby was presenting, the sort of overall space to, get us out to, it says 2070, but, who knows, 2070, I'm probably dead by then. But just sort of looking out, so when I continue to do this process, you notice whether we build on this side or whether we build across the street or wherever, it's a 36 to 40,000 square foot building to sort of meet the needs for a long time, like I say, long after I'm gone and maybe I'm still living. But what we wanted to show here is where butts are in a seat and what could we do here. The biggest problem with this 3rd floor here, when you cube, let's say we continue just maximize cube out and you get 4 more on planning, and luckily we get 4 more on the other side. What you're talking about right now, 40 some people up there, so time you finish that'd be well over 50. One of the things we're doing right now, which may not seem very, you don't think about, but you've got 1 toilet in the men's bathroom. The majority over here is, I think there's more men over here than women at this point in time. So we're changing 2 stand-up stalls, 2 stand-up urinals to stalls is what we're trying to do now, because you just don't have stalls. You got 1 in the front and 1 in the back. And even the women's bathroom, the same situation. So what we're trying to do as we continue to maximize this space out without going out and trying to tear down a bunch of walls, you may get, like I say, possibly 8 more cubes over here and be max, and then we're maxing out bathroom spaces, and that's probably the biggest complaint we get over there. So we're getting to a point where there is no more space.
So as we walked through this process, are you saying if we were to expand the current town hall, we would leave people over there on that site?
Eventually we'd get 40,000 square feet total over here, Bob. Go back to this slide.
That's all we can, with the additional land behind us. We would,
Doesn't include, we'd want to look at parking, all that. You could make it bigger. So if you notice on this picture, this does not include, Bobby, this doesn't include the additional land behind us, right?
It is not, at the time, we had not acquired that yet.
Tearing down the white building and basically using what we had at that time. This is our old picture. So this would give you, if you look at 10,000, roughly 10,000 square feet per floor, so 36 to 40,000 square feet.
I would encourage the board, if this is the site, the site we're on, and expanding back, to really think through putting everyone under one roof. And I say that because that was kind of our goal in building over there at the town center site, was that everyone would at least be on one corner, so they wouldn't be crossing the street, et cetera. This almost feels like if we don't build it for everyone, you're actually pushing people even further away.
You could do that on this site and lease out that.
That's
lease out
right.
the floor over there. This is, what I didn't want to do is, I didn't spend any more money, with consultants, et cetera. We sort of used what we already had in place in the study they did. The back piece of property that we just purchased was not in play at the time. So I just used what we had and didn't spend any more
Okay.
money. It sort of shows you it can fit on this site. Parking would be tough, but now with the additional land we have behind us, you could make it bigger. Obviously, you'd have additional parking, and you could potentially lease that space over there at some point in time.
Anyone have questions? Commissioner Kovacs?
Did we do a study to see how, if any of those positions were able to be remote?
So we've talked to, we changed the policy some, but did we do a study? No. Have we talked to department heads and talked amongst ourselves of what we could and couldn't do remote? Yes. Have we put that on a piece of paper to present to you? No. And that's something we can do. The biggest challenges they're going to be, and I'm sure department heads would love to talk about it, the biggest challenge is government is, they're starting to move slightly in that direction. Private sector has. The government is, you've got folks complain when there's not a butt in the seat if they can't see someone live. So getting government to go in that direction is a slow move, but they're going to have to move in that direction. It's just a different animal, unfortunately. I'd love to push more people from home, but you've got people that want to come meet you face to face. It's just, developers. When they want to come, even when COVID times, I'd say no. They want to meet face to face. And those are some of the problems you run into. Code enforcement, sure. That's why you got cubicles. We put those folks in cubicles. A plan review, some of that kind of stuff, yes, you can do from home. But that's the biggest problem with government. Folks want to still see you face to face.
Commissioner Munger?
Sure. I have a bunch of questions. Some of which I assume you probably don't have answers to, but in December 2021, to build that building over there at a fixed cost, it would have cost us $14,546,520. Any idea what it would cost today?
No.
Basic real estate right now going up about 20%. Safe to say probably another $3 million. So $3 million down the drain. Currently, on this location, and you kind of touched on it, the only way I see us being able to have adequate parking is building a parking garage in that location behind us. Between the parking garage and the addition, do we have any idea what that would cost?
So you may be able to get away with surface parking. It just depends on that whole site. So if you took this all the way back, that's why I say we hadn't spent any money on doing any design, et cetera. This building could expand back, but your parking could do L-shaped parking. It'll be all surface parking, but.
Right, but to that point, you're kind of looking at this in a silo and during this presentation. We have Veterans Park over there. We have a number of events. Logic says you build a parking garage to handle parking here and handle parking over there. And if American Legion actually did sell, not necessarily to us, there may be another location that might make sense to have additional parking. You're going to build a parking garage if you're going to build it here. That's the only way it makes sense. If we added on to this building, there are a number of employees that work in this building. Would they be able to work in this building while construction was occurring?
This would have to be, it'd be tough. For some point of time, we'd have to get out, for sure.
And where would they be housed?
That's a,
We haven't got,
I hadn't gone that far down the path because they hadn't moved me in that direction yet.
Sufficient to say it would cost additional dollars to house them in a separate location where we might have to rent property, or we may have to be able to make use of another town building, which might displace other activities.
That's a, yes, it would cost money to do that.
Excellent. From a personal standpoint, everyone on this board knows that I am a big fan of Statesville and Stumptown. Statesville and Stumptown, 15 acres. You build a town hall. You move the police station there. You move Fire Station 1 there. You have a community civic center there. I'm going to continue to plead that town hall doesn't have to be downtown. Build it where it makes sense. It makes sense there. And let's see if I have anything else. How many bodies are in the blue functional office space? Not this slide.
Go to
Those two. How many people we have in those?
43 or so?
10.
It was close to 50. I counted them before, but I,
no, in this building.
oh, this building, I'm sorry.
Functional office space, those two blue spots
I'd say about 10. 10.
over there. All right, just curious.
Yeah, and that includes 2 offices too.
All right,
That used to be cubes.
excellent.
12 or 13.
That makes you 12. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna leave it alone. That's it for now.
Commissioner Partee.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to take a stab at this. I'm more leaning towards the expansion aspect of the town hall. And is there any cost savings to expanding the town hall as opposed to building the town hall, number one? Number two, do we have any architectural sketch plans or floor plans for the expansion building? And can you go back to the other slide, Bobby? I see 3 stories here. 3 stories. And is that sufficient enough to house all our employees?
So this, they didn't do any sort of sketches here. As you can see, it's just a block form because this was, they wanted to do a sort of side by side. All they're doing is basically taking that blob over there and kind of moving it over here, but in a box-shaped form, so no architectural drawings done. And you can see from a square footage standpoint, it's fairly similar, 36 to 40,000 square feet, but zero architectural on it. As far as cost savings, you would, I mean, all this has to be gutted, but the biggest, I think, savings over there, the 2 simplest things was, you have stormwater in place, and then 2 was a parking deck. So instead of trying to create more parking, they were trying to use the existing parking deck. So it all depends on what you do over here. Do you build a parking deck? Is anything grandfathered over here from stormwater? Probably not all of it, maybe a piece of it because you have a building, some asphalt. So those are things we'd have to do more research on, but no doubt construction costs have gone up. So no matter where you build now, construction, if you took the same blob and put it down, the construction costs have gone up probably at a minimum 25 to 40%.
Can I throw a 3 out there? There's no building over there. There's no destruction or anything that needs to be leveled.
Is that all you've got, Commissioner Partee? Yes. Okay, Commissioner Phillips?
So when we were talking about over there, y'all said that the fix would be 20 years-ish?
It would be the same size, so the fix is the same on either side. So if you take the square foot, all they're doing is taking the square footage and moving it on one side or the other. So it's the same fix either way.
When we were over there, I swear, somebody said that that building would have lasted us like 20, 25 years.
More than. We did not, we wanted to last more than because
Well,
we're
more
already
than, of
sitting-
course. But then also the price for that one doesn't include the upstairs, the whole ghost space, whatever it's called. And I think that's something that should be part of the conversation is we're going to have unfinished floor. So that cost needs to be part of it.
So the same thing would be over here too. So you're not gonna get any more square footage over here.
I know, but over there just sucks. I hated that idea. It's the last little slither of green space. Eventually, that could probably be the most expensive piece of land in Huntersville. We're cutting our nose off to spite our face. Like we
It
talk
is
about.
now, but, it can be used now because we got rid of the stipulations that we had on that bond. So now you could do some private use, that's gone, the private use restriction. So now it's worth a lot more.
And I would agree with you. If we're not going to build over there, then we should sell it and allow that the building that was originally planned for over there.
Well, if you sell that, you lease out DPK, then you start getting money back to offset whatever is going to happen in the future.
I mean, the third floor?
Yeah. Or we could have just not passed North State, but that's a whole other thing. So all this was done by the people who built this town hall, right? All these plans. The original town hall, these guys are the ones behind it.
Gosh, I'm trying to,
It's a
it's a
variation.
mix, it's a variation.
Norma Wright Creech designed this one, and then Creech and Associates is the architect that's working with the design builder.
The old man creature, I don't think is there working anymore.
And then over there, if you go back and look at the picture, it doesn't really take into account Main Street with the doing over there. I'm just rambling at this point because I feel like it's been 6 months of we haven't done anything and then surprise. Is there any way that this could be put some way, shape, or form into the bond stuff to pay for this?
You can. This is one where you have, it's like a house. When you have collateral, it's a great thing. Roads, you don't have collateral, so you typically put that kind of stuff in bonds. That's all I would say. But can it be? Sure, it can be.
Well, and over there was, for me, over there was going to be too small. Like, if you look at that, if you actually go stand on that piece of grass, it's still too small. The argument about people having to cross the street, that they do, but they're still going to have to cross somewhere. So if we're going to, I feel like if we're going to talk about actually doing it, we need to do it so that it's done and no other board ever has to talk about this for like 50 to 100 years.
Well, that was the goal.
It didn't feel like it
Originally-
last time.
That was originally the goal, to have the
What I would say
complex.
about the bond is, yeah, you let the people can vote on it, but at the end of the day, what does people say? We don't want a town hall. Ultimately, you got to stop hiring people. It's that simple. There's no more space to put them. Either you got to rent space, or put them somewhere else, or stop growing, shut down growth.
Then what would be another funding option besides just going through our budget? Are there any other, so,
Installment finance or bond. Those are your two options. Rates, who knows what the rates will be when we do it, but rates will be fairly comparable probably. They're not going to be too far off with the bond or the probably installment finance. Installment financing, bond may even be the same term. It just depends on what the market's doing at that time. Terms may be similar.
and then our last meeting in January, we had some like takeaways and like deliverables about like using like Iron Mountain, doing an efficiency study. Did we do any of that yet?
The efficiency study has basically been done through, you're talking about when you say, well, let me take that back.
Like, does the cubicle, the feng shui of it work?
So we have been downsizing cubicles. I'll say the biggest problem is over there is you've got hard walls up in some of those spaces. Some of those spaces are pretty big offices. So is it worth, depending on your long-term goal, what's the cost and how much more functionality do you get out of tearing down a wall here and there? I don't know if you're going to save. That's why where the table is, where you see the table on planning, all that was set up way back when to be cubes. And same thing on the other side, on the public works side. You may get a little more functionality out of some of those. That's what Bobby said, even though you see 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 cubes over there, you may get 12 cubes. When that top floor was designed, it had a maximum cube space up in that sort of core area and then also in Jack's area. The other thing we did, if you look at the back of the building where the IT network administrator is, that was actually storage space. We moved all that down to the second floor. That second floor little space is a room with no windows and no bathrooms down there, et cetera. So it is only ideal for storage. So we'll cram as much storage as we can in there. So if you put offices or cubes in there, you basically walk up and down the bathrooms And there's, I mean, it's like being in a closet area.
Are we running low on storage over there as well?
It'll get tight, but we moved a lot of that down in that room, and then, you know, some of the storage may move. Obviously, we're trying to do as much, you know, in the cloud, and then we'll move stuff, if we need to, down to Siegel for some of the Parks and Rec, et cetera. And that's why we haven't done anything with this building yet, just to make sure, once those buildings are built, how's our storage look before we would possibly tear down the white building behind us.
Any other questions? Commissioner Bidwell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple things, and Stacy already talked about the unit being partially built out, but the fixed cost, I distinctly remember Commissioner Walsh asking the architect about, that was the all-in price, and he said, well, no, not really. That's the estimated price, and then as we start building, the price would potentially go up based off building materials. You can go back and look at the video instead of shaking your head no. But yeah, so that is not the fixed cost. It's not the actual price. It's going to go up for a partially built building. You guys know my feelings on this. They haven't changed since January, so that's all I've got to say about that.
Commissioner Kovacs, do you have more questions?
No, I just have the same sentiments from January. I think that we need to be proactive in having some people work from home, and what Commissioner Phillips said about the bond referendum, it's not even so much about paying for it through the bond. I just would prefer to hear from the residents as opposed to us making the decision. But if we were to go through with it, the only thing I would be willing to vote for is to have something that encompasses everybody, not, because we could spend $14 million on a new building and still have people in two buildings, and that's just asinine to me. So if we are going to do something and spend that money, then it needs to be something that's beneficial to all. So if we blew this back, went all the way back, did a parking garage, so that way we could have more parking at veterans, even possibly having access to public restrooms because we have the Vine right across the street, like make it so that way it has multi-functions. That's the only thing that I could even come close to wanting, but I would also like to say selling that green space so that way people can build on it. Gave me a little heart attack because, you know, green space is nice to stay green.
Commissioner Boone.
Thank you. And Bobby, thank you for your presentation. This is the slide I need. Is this the actual footprint of the lot that we're working on right now? Since we bought that piece, it doesn't show that. Is it more going towards what it says, Old Statesville?
There would be more extending further to the, I guess, to the left of.
Okay. My question is, and I'll start from across the street, is that I want to keep that place of grassy green space. That's where I'm coming for as far as keeping it on this side of the street if we decide to go with a new town hall. Mr. Roberts, why are we saying 3 stories and not 4 stories for the addition?
All we did here, like I say, I didn't go get the consultant involved again, so all they did here, if you recall, they basically took the blob and put it over here and said, if that square footage over there is roughly 36,000 square feet of new space, what do we need to add on to town hall to make it consistent over here? They didn't do a whole lot of analysis, so that's what you see here to get the same sort of square footage. It's just a box at the back.
Well, what jumps out at me here is don't worry about building a parking deck, make it 4 stories and having the first floor parking and have all the offices above that. That's something I would think I would look at. As far as paying for it, I think we need to look at the bonds, possibly paying for part of it and actually financing the other half of the project if we can break it in to do 2 different projects. The restoration of this building and then the addition or of the new building. That's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Boone. I've thought a lot about this site because I admittedly am a fan of the other site, just simply because of the cost and the 50-plus year fix that that's supposed to give. However, I mean, if this board, and it sounded to me like this board is interested in this particular site, along with the addition of the property behind us, then I would just say, thinking outside the box, why would we keep this building? And I asked that question, if you set it back, you get it off the road. And then you can have a little bit more green space, a little small plaza space. You get a turn lane out in front of this building to go on to 115 to the right. I would like to hear more from the board. Are you interested in reaching out, having Anthony reach out to the architects to come up with a plan for this site? Is that what you're interested in? And if so, do you want it to be all-encompassing to bring all departments under one roof? Is that what we're looking at? Or are we still looking at two sites? I think he needs a little bit of a direction on what our next steps should be. Commissioner Phillips.
I'll jump in. This site, all-encompassing,
This site, okay.
bond.
So can I ask a question? If financing comes out to be cheaper, financing, bond, if one is cheaper than the other, is there a preference?
I mean, cheapers.
Cheaper's
Duh.
good.
But I also think that it should be not like the last time where it was pretty much we stuck pictures on the wall in town hall and said, y'all got to pick these, and people didn't really get to give their input. I think if we're starting over like we're doing right now, we need to go ahead and have community engagement before we get the ball rolling with plans. Even if 3 people show up, we are allowing the public to have a say in their public building, And that way,
Can we not take what we did get from them and start there?
people didn't like it. They felt it was,
It was an ABC. It was multiple choice. It wasn't open-ended. So they were given a product, not a placement or a place to say nay. We shoved it down their throat. Well, not we, I wasn't here. But it was shoved down my throat as a resident because my option was, I don't want any of these, and I didn't get a place to put that.
Well, I think one of the reasons for that was that was the site that the board had set. So you're also going to kind of get that too, unless there's a different format in which the architect can work. And I don't know the answer to that. So I will defer that to Mr. Roberts or Mr. Williams.
I mean, the architect can come in and you have a, open canvas and folks can say, you'll get everything under the sun. But you got to pick a location. If we go, hell, look at the map when we had all the dots. I want it over yonder. Well, how about look at that site? Just think about if you open that up to all the town, we'd have 500 different sites. So you got to kind of hone in on a location, and then you kind of have an open campus. Open canvas, and then folks can come in because you'll have, I want a community room, I want a senior center, I want art center, I want all those above, but you got to some way, you as a board got to dial that down.
And the architect also gave us 3 options that they felt they could build for us within the 14 to 15 million on that site.
And that was one of the things too, the board at the time said, hey, this is kind of the number we want to spend, it wasn't.
Correct. We were not going to spend 1 cent over.
And you have to kind of think about that in your mind. If you just think about it, if I let my wife go out there and say, hey, let's build a house on the lake, honey, you pick whatever you want, $5 million, I'll say, honey, we got a $1 million budget. So you've got to, as a board, have got to dial that in to what you think you can. It's great for the open to the public, but I want brick, you want concrete, I want pink, you want red. Those don't cost money, but those kind of things drive up the cost like crazy. So you have to put parameters around it.
but I still think that's a good launch pad to know what the people want, because it's not our building, it's the citizens' building. So, maybe somebody does want to paint it pink and purple and polka dots, and I'd be their best friend, but
And I ain't worried about the bucket of paint. I'm worried about more of, are we using, ivory, slate, stone, whatever it may be.
But you don't know, these people in our community might have better ideas than all of us combined. So I think it's worth having just like a sit-down, shoot the breeze kind of meeting with the citizens just to hear ideas. And then we can weed out, this is good, this is crap, this is impossible. And then we know what we're building for the citizens.
But is there a site? The key is,
Well, I said here, and what I said should be right.
if you got 3 more to go with here, then we're good.
And we can
Commissioner
definitely
Boone.
talk with the consultant to get that process the way you want it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. What I'm hearing is that of all the sites, this seems to be the one that we're looking at right now from most of the people who are in favor of this. This is where it needs to be. I'm also hearing very loudly that we need citizen input and possibly putting this on an agenda. Do I need to stop until another commissioner comes back? Because I want to be sure he hears this. But anyway, I think that you asked the question, do we need to ask the architect to bring back 2 or 3 different ideas? I think that's a good idea, depending on what the cost is. And I think that gives Mr. Roberts an idea of the location you were looking for.
Commissioner Kovacs?
Like I just said, as long as things don't cost money, I'm on board with Commissioner Phillips. Like if we had almost like an informal open house type thing, like the Downtown Steering Committee does when they have people come look at these, but just to come talk to us, just informally give us their ideas and stuff so we can make sure we want that before we spend another penny, because we already heard we're $250 in the hole for something the majority didn't want or don't want
Well,
currently,
to bring the architect back, it is going to cost money.
which is why I think we need to talk to people before we even
And I would think they'd be willing to talk to us about how we could do an iterative process ourselves to get public input in a fashion that informs them, so that if you get the kind of public input you're seeking, then we hit go with the architect. They're using that to sculpt a new plan.
And that's fine. I just think that we spend so much money on having third parties come in to tell us how to talk to our people, but we are elected to talk to our people. So I think we can just talk to them, like, before we have to spend money on it.
Kim sent out a invite to some upcoming growers market sessions, and we have a number of opportunities on the calendar to get out and engage our citizens. Maybe this is one of those topics that gets on that list.
That's a great idea, Bobby. Anyone else? Commissioner Partee?
Yeah, let me go back to my original question to our town manager. I did bring up the fact that I like the expansion on this site. And regarding the cost savings, would it be practical to drop that particular project into this site, that building onto this building? Which you said that this is what this represents?
Pretty much,
So,
it would do the same thing that, like I say, the only real
stormwater
difference in cost is stormwater.
and the parking
and
deck.
parking.
Right.
And it won't be, if you take that same box and put it over here, it won't be
The floor plan.
14, 15 million, whatever.
And can we go up 4 stories?
Dirt out back too. If you guys get a shock that we don't have clean dirt out back, don't want you to be.
We haven't done any soil borings over here, any of that kind of stuff to get so it could be perfect. Everything could be great. Those kind of things, we've done nothing on to see. I don't know.
And to piggyback on Commissioner Boone, can we go up 4 stories instead of 3 to add?
You can go 6, if the board wanted to, yes, sir.
Of course permitting.
And then, the reason we're trying to stay, before that $15 million number, we couldn't get in, that 3rd floor, finished to get in that number. And that was sort of parameters that the board at that time put on us. Looking at, they wanted to allow, the expansion, I think, allowed a 20 or 30-year expansion. 3rd floor was to kind of take you past that 20, 30-year. That's why that was not finished.
And Commissioner Partee, I also want to make sure that you understand, along with everyone else, is that what you're seeing on this screen here with the 3 stories behind does not bring in engineering and planning under the roof. So, okay. So do we have some direction for Mr. Roberts at this point? Interest in this site? All departments under one roof and community engagement? What am I missing? Not spending any money. That's probably not No, we'll probably have to spend minimal money to start over.
Maybe what to do is, let me just talk to the consultants to see, not spending any money yet, to give us some thoughts and ideas, public engagement to what would something even look, proposal, what would something look like to design on all of the site we got over here now? Just give us some ideas and thoughts. We're not spending any money yet, so that we have some ideas to bring back to you, and you may say, none of that, even works, or maybe they're willing to give me a freebie or two, I don't know. So maybe I'll get back with them, see what some of the ways they engage the public more for you. And it could be to just show up at a board meeting, but let us come back with some ideas on that.
And you guys heard from Brent Green with Creech back in January. This is not a unique situation. Boards change, priorities change, something that they dealt with in a number of other communities as well. So I think they'd be willing to work with us to kind of see through an evolution of this process.
Commissioner Kidwell.
One question. Before we signed with the architectural firm that came up with the plans for across the street, did we put that out for proposal? And
You have to remember, I have to do qualifications, government has to go through that. I would love to say, give me your best price. You three companies are,
but we had 3 proposals come forward.
more, how many do we have, you remember?
7, 8
Yeah, it was a big box of
Qualifications.
qualified.
Are they the cheapest?
You remember, it's qualifications.
quality, you're required to choose based on the best submittal.
Government makes you go on qualifications, not on price, unfortunately.
Stacy, you were there.
No, because it was bad times. I blocked it out.
Well, staff also worked through those qualifications.
And that is why we went design build, so you're not getting an architect and then you hire a contractor who doesn't get along or see eye to eye or finds additional costs. The goal is to value engineer throughout the process.
I do remember that they had the most experience, I believe, in municipal buildings. Some of the others, it was like they had dreams of doing them, but I didn't want to be guinea pig, if that makes
I
sense.
think the top 2 were them, and then probably Rogers, Rogers, I think, did DPK, and then Rogers did the rec center.
They've done a lot of civic buildings. That was.
So the ones sort of came to the top were ones that have done quite a few sort of municipal buildings.
All right. So, Mr. Roberts, do you have enough from what you've heard this evening to move forward?
Yeah, good to go. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 3 minutes until the regular board meeting. We will see you back